Happy Friday, Orlando. Welcome to We Know Orlando's Ask a Pro. And once again, with matching outfits, we have Alan Maycumber, our pro, and Alan, who is with us today, our special guest.
Good morning, Orlando. I want to introduce to you Alyssa Miller with Fidelity National Title. This is a very important part when it comes to real estate out there, no matter where you're at, nationwide. So I want to introduce Alyssa Miller. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, and thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Happy Friday. I'm with Fidelity National Title, and we are actually located just down the road above Nona Blue. We are a Fortune 300 company.
Wow.
But we have 18 offices that serve the communal business here in Central Florida.
Thank you so much. So when we're getting into talking about title, there is a lot of questions because most people don't understand how it works. So how long has Fidelity, I'll ask, how long has Fidelity been in business in the Lake Nona area?
We've been here over 4 years.
Wow, that's great. And that's a big challenge, I'm sure, with the growth that we've seen.
Absolutely.
Does your company have any community charities or anything that they support?
We do, much like you do with We Know Orlando. We do holiday drives. So we do toy drives during the holidays. We've done pajama drives, and we constantly hold community events.
It's great because we work with Fidelity on a regular basis. We work with the YMCA on doing their charity events. We work with the Children's Home here on Narcoossee. We also work with Campus Crusade for Christ on their 5K. So we do a lot of events that we just love to bring in our partners that help you as a client of ours. So before we go into the 12 things, I want to tell you, like, share, and comment, because Tia is standing by to answer and get me those questions for Alyssa so we can answer them for you. So now, for the 12 most important things about title insurance. What I want you to ask you is basically, what is title insurance? Alyssa?
Title insurance ensures that the buyer, when they purchase that property, is the sole owner and no one else has rights to that property from the time that they own it on.
Okay, so how far back does that go?
30 years we search.
30 years. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about, when you do a title search, it helps the seller. Number one, it helps the seller protect them, but what about the buyer?
Well, it also protects the buyer for the entire time that they own the property, because they have no idea what happened in those 30 years. So no matter how many times that property has changed hands, we are researching that and ensuring that that buyer is the only one that will own it from that time on.
Okay, so number one, the big question, what does the title company do and what is the importance of title search?
So the title search, as I said, it searches 30 years back. Now the title company has a lot of different jobs. They serve as the liaison between the lender, if there is one in the transaction, the two realtors, the buyer and the seller, and we kind of pull all the information together, wrap it in a nice bow, and hold the closing.
That is great. So number two, what I want to ask you is, what makes your company different from other companies out there?
Well, we are the largest title company in the country. So as I said, we have all those locations locally, but we have the strongest financial backing and the largest claims reserve in the entire country.
Thank you very much. And number three, what is your company's goals and benefits, and why should a seller use your services?
Well, in addition to being the largest title company with the largest claims reserve, we are also a direct underwriter. So what that means is that we are saving on each policy by underwriting directly with our underwriter. We are direct operation.
Great, thank you. So number four, which is a big question that I get from a lot of sellers, is what does a title search do for them?
For the seller.
Yes.
So the seller, essentially, we search back and make sure that there are no liens or anything on the property, no open permits. When we do that title search, we are ensuring that seller will not be bothered in the future by anything, and that they are getting rid of the property fully.
Great. So that brings up question number five. If there is a blemish or an error on the title, how do they get it resolved and how do you help them?
Well, and there will be. Issues will come up, but it is our job to be proactive and communicate openly with everyone and just really do our best to get that resolved as quickly and as smoothly as possible for all parties.
Okay, great. So it brings up a question number 6, which we get a lot. We get a lot of problems that sometimes come up, but a big one is encroachments on a property. And can you go in a little bit to how you would help a seller or a buyer fix encroachments?
And again, those things will happen. That's the reason that we do have a survey. If it is a finance transaction, if the buyer is taking a mortgage out on that property, the lender will actually require them to get a survey. And if we do find that there are any encroachments on the property, there are a couple different options. We will be proactive in working that out with the city and the county, or the buyer can sign an exception. So we have a couple different ways to go, but we want to definitely take care of it as smoothly and quickly as possible.
But you are always constantly in contact with them trying to work it out.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Number 7, what is the difference between you and an attorney when it comes to closing a transaction?
Well, there are a couple of differences. A common misconception is that a real estate attorney can actually represent the seller or the buyer in addition to holding the closing. So they actually serve as just the closing agent. They cannot represent the seller if any legal issues do come up in that transaction.
So what you're telling me is, why would they go to an attorney? Because now they're going to pay attorney's fees and a title fee when they could come directly to you as a source, Fidelity National Title, and get the same services.
Correct. So part of us being a direct underwriter is that you're going directly to the source. An attorney is also going to underwrite with us or maybe one of the other underwriters in the state.
Does your company, and this is a question that comes up, does your company have an attorney on staff that can answer questions even though they can't represent a seller?
We do. It's a little tricky on what we can advise on in a transaction because we do have that fiduciary responsibility to the buyer and seller. Okay. But we do have attorneys on staff.
Great. Number 8, what are the top qualifications a seller should look for when picking a title company?
Well, you should look for a strong financial backing. Just do your research, see how long that title company has been around. Have they been around for a while? Look at some of the reviews and see that it seems like a safe and comfortable company to go with. And make sure they're strong. Make sure that they, that you've got a nice, strong financial company representing you in one of the largest purchases of your life, really.
That's great. Now, another big question for you. As realtors and brokers in Orlando, we have a board of code of ethics that we have to follow to protect the public.
Right.
What does a title company have to do?
We have a lot of different guidelines. We have something called RESPA, which regulates how we interact. We are not allowed to induce business in certain ways. So we want to make sure that you're doing business with us because of our strong financial backing and our amazing customer service. We also are required to have a licensed title agent in the state of Florida in each of our offices. And so that involves continuing education credits throughout the year, relicensing processes, much like you all have to do.
Great, thank you very much. Now, big question here for the public, and as we know, there is hundreds of scams and problems out there going around now. How do you protect against it? And as a second part of that question, give us the guidelines of what you require a buyer and a seller to do.
Well, there are a lot of different things that can happen in a transaction, but it's our job to prevent that from happening, as you said. So we have an extensive list of safety precautions that we have, and a lot of it revolves around wiring instructions. So we can only send them secure through our secure email portal, and interestingly enough, they can actually be texted because texting is an encrypted method, but we cannot send them to you. We want to send them directly to the buyer.
So that's a very important part, and we'll come back to that a little later. Number 11, so is a title company neutral to the transaction?
Absolutely. We represent both the buyer and the seller, and we are guided by that contract 100%.
So you're telling me that a buyer and seller in the same transaction can come to you and ask you to do a title search or redo a title search or something like that?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's great to know. Number 12, this is a good one. What is the cost of a title insurance policy and other related costs when it comes to just the title, because it's very important a seller knows the fees it's going to take?
So in the state of Florida, a title insurance policy is a promulgated rate. So those will be the same across the board. If your seller has owned the property for less than 3 years, we can issue a reissue credit, and that's our opportunity to lessen those fees. We have a closing fee at our Lake Nona office, and we make sure that's as competitive as possible. We also have a title search fee, which is $150, and we pay that directly to the title search plant.
That's great. So those are your standard fees.
Correct.
There are one other fee that might come up, which is an estoppel fee,
Correct.
which we talked about earlier. Estoppel fees you charge to make sure that their HOA is in compliance with their home.
Correct, and we actually pay that cost up front. And that searches that there are no outstanding fees that the seller did not pay to HOA. And a couple years ago, they actually capped that fee. So the most that it could possibly be is $350 if all fees are paid, and typically they're lower than that.
Great. So in conclusion, I want to hit a couple of major points that we discussed. Fraud and scams is a major one. You know, as you had told me that you can't send me the wiring instructions as an agent, even though I represent a seller. So what do you suggest to a seller to get you the monies they need, and also to a buyer? What do you suggest? Can a buyer come directly to you and drop off a check?
Absolutely, and we would love to have as much personal contact with both buyers and seller as possible. So just open communication from the beginning. We want all contact information so we can get that END within those 3 days.
Thank you so much. So that can, in conclusion, I want Alyssa Miller to tell you how you can contact her for any information you may need.
Absolutely. So you can call me on my cell at 336-988-3462, or you can email me at alyssa.miller@fnf.com.
And you can always contact us at weknoworlando.com, as well as call our office 407-251-1314, or write tia@maycumber.com. So we're always here for you.
And thank you so much for joining us for another Ask a Pro segment. I know we had Alyssa on today, but guess what? We have a very special part 2 of closing procedures with a title company on Tuesday with Heather Kelly. Stay tuned for that, because that's going to be really interesting also. We want to thank Alyssa so much for joining us today. And as always, like, share, and comment on Facebook. What do you know, Alan?
We Know Orlando. You have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye, Alyssa.